The Schweinfurt Regensburg raid was organized by Air Marshal Arthur Balmer Harris and Major General Karl Spaatz. They planned the mission so that they can weaken the German aircraft industry. One of the commanders of the raid was Curtis LeMay, an Air Force general who was credited with designing and implementing an effective but also controversial systematic strategic bombing campaign in the Pacific theater of World War II. The other commander was Robert B. Williams. Williams was a major general in the Air Force and an eminent combat commander during World War II. He had also led the B-17 raid on the Schweinfurt ball bearing factories. For the Nazis, the commander was Adolf Galland. He was a Luftwaffe general and flying ace, and flew over 705 combat missions.
The mission was a strategic bombing plan carried out by World War Boeing B-17 bombers of the U.S. Army Air Force, or the modern-day Air Force. On August 17, 1943, it was an ambitious plan to cripple the German aircraft industry. The mission was the first American shuttle mission in which part of the mission started at a different field and later bombed another target before returning to its original base. The first bombardment wing, which included all of the original B-17 groups, was based in the English Midlands, while the 4th bombardment wing stations were located in East Anglia. They flew from runways all over England and crossed the Dutch waterway to Schweinfurt.
Harris and Major General Karl Spaatz was intended to destroy the Luftwaffe and its infrastructure prior to the invasion of Europe. This was to be accomplished through a combined bomber offensive against German aircraft factories, ball-bearing plants, fuel depots, and other related targets. Early point-blank missions were conducted by the USAF's 1st and 4th Bombardment Wings, also known as BWs, and targeted fighter plants in Kassel and Bremen. In planning to strike on Regensburg, a second target was added, the ball-bearing plants at Schweinfurt. Even though the mission required both the Regensburg and Schweinfurt to be hit in rapid succession to ensure minimal losses, the 4th BW was permitted to depart even though the 1st BW was still grounded due to fog. When they reached landfall, German fighters attacks began, and though some fighter escorts were present, they provided insufficient cover to the entire Air Force. After 90 minutes of aerial combat, the Germans broke off to refuel, and LeMay's bombers encountered little flak and were able to drop approximately 300 tons of bombs on target. Turning south, the Regensburg force was met by few fighters but had a largely uneventful transit to North Africa. With their damage dealt to the 4th BW, the Luftwaffe prepared to deal with approaching 1st BW. They were immediately attacked by 300 German fighters during the flight to Schweinfurt and sustained many casualties. As they neared the target, Germany broke off to refuel in preparation to attack the bombers on the return leg of the trip, and the planes reached the target. They encountered heavy flak over time, but were able to drop 3 bombs. And as the 4th BW were returning home, they encountered many more German fighters, but when they reached Belgium, the bombers were met by a covering force of Allied fighters, which allowed them to complete their trip to England relatively unscathed.
Cost the US AAF 60 B-17s and 55 aircrews. The crew's loss totaled 552 men, of whom half became prisoners of war. 7 aircrew were killed, with another 21 wounded. In addition to the bomber force, the Allies lost 3 P-47 Thunderbolts and 2 Spitfires. While Allied air crews claimed 318 German aircraft, the Germans reported that only 27 fighters had been killed.
The impact of the war after the Schweinfurt and Regensburg raid is that even though the Allies' losses were harsh, the Allies did perform heavy damage on the Messerschmitt plants and the ball-bearing factories. This in result led to the Germans reporting an immediate production drop of 34%. However, this had little impact on the war since the production loss was made up quickly by other German plants. But on the Allies side, however, the battle did impact the Allies for the rest of the war, since the losses that the Allies suffered led to the leaders having to rethink the feasibility of long-distance unescorted daylight raids on Germany